Hello, my name is Chris Salem. I'm a wellness advocate. I'm here with Scott Leifer, who is the founder and CEO of Wake Up Sense, wakeupsense.com. And as we all know, we're in the midst of a global crisis with the COVID-19, and there are many people out there that have been affected in some way, either directly or indirectly through all the limitations that we are facing here as not only as a society overall. But with that being said, there are a lot of things that are going on with people where this crisis is just magnifying some other deeply seated issues that are affecting people on an individual basis. And we're here today to kind of talk about this as a time that we can now reflect and begin to look within and how we can reclaim back our mental health. And we have someone here today who actually has gone through this personally and has developed a process and methodology that helps people to reclaim their mental health back. And without further ado, I'd like to bring in here Scott Leifer. Scott, how are you doing today?
Hi, Chris. How are you? I'm doing great. Can't complain. Life is good. You just got to dredge through these tough times. And this kind of shows people that when you do get isolated, you have to reach out to people like you and me and just make this more of a communal base, because I think that at the core of depression and anxiety, that's what's really going on right now. Is this is bringing to the forefront. This goes much, much bigger than just a coronavirus. This is deep-seated issues that people have been dealing with for a long, long time. And now it's just exacerbated. And I think the timing is perfect for this interview. So I appreciate you having me on.
So Scott, let's talk about this. I mean, a lot of things that people go through, how they're feeling it. People have been feeling depressed for a long period of time, maybe just not feeling themselves for a period of time, or experiencing more negative emotions on a consistent basis. I mean, obviously this crisis has magnified that, but it wasn't the crisis itself. There was other things going on. Talk about it from your experience and your process, what that is and what can people be doing today to gather some information that they can reclaim control back over their mental health.
Yeah. So I think from my vantage point, Chris, you've really got to go back a little bit and really understand. When I went down this journey, I was depressed on 4 classes of meds. This was 12 years ago now. I haven't been on a med for 12 years, which I can tell you is pretty empowering. And I know there's many, many people suffering. But when I went down this path, what I realized was the medical industry really doesn't even define it correctly. What I mean by that is depression, everybody has depression. The difference is most people are walking around today in what we term endogenous depression, which is simply it changes the biochemistry in your brain. And there's no amount of medication, there's no amount of deep breathing, just doing those, it's going to change that. But unfortunately, we define it wrong. So when you define things wrong, everything you tie to it to try to help that, obviously, is not going to work long term. So people have situational depression every day. Loss of an 8-year-old who loses a pet can be just as traumatic as somebody like mine. When I lost my dad 8 years ago, that was a pretty traumatic experience. There's just nothing there's no manual for that type of pain and mental pain. But what happens is we all have trauma starting at about age 3 to 5. And again, that can be losing a pet, right? You don't have the mental capacity yet in your brain to really understand how that's affecting you. Well, we go through life, right? We have financial issues, we have divorces, we have all the stressors that people deal with every day. And unfortunately, that's what's happening now is people are walking around in this, what I call benumbed figure 8, because it's in their soft tissue now. The depression, and it's nothing more than fear or anger internalized over time. And you're speaking to the guy who did this. I mean, my body cracked before I was even 40 years old from all the stressors that I dealt with. But that's number one, I think, is you have to understand situational depression, people can get out of pretty quickly if they have some tools to work with, but we're in different times. And what this coronavirus thing has done now is it's really brought to the forefront how depressed people really are, but they can't really deal with that and manage it until they understand it's in their soft tissue. It's changed their brain chemistry. And that's a whole nother set of issues. And that's where my company was spawned, to really get back to the roots of why we're suffering and how to feed the body naturally, holistically, because there's not a drug out there, Chris. I was on 4 of them. There's not one that did anything for me long term. So that's really the issue, is we have to define it first. What is it?
You made a great point here. I mean, we as a society, when you look at any type of product or service, it's all about a lot of times just managing the problem. It doesn't get to the root cause of the problem to solve it. It's all about, let's just manage the symptoms of it. And it appears that medication, that's what it does for people dealing with mental health issues. But if we can really define it and get to the root cause of what it actually is, yes, is it easy? No, but is it a process? Yes. That in the long run, we're more likely to have better results long term that are more sustainable by doing the legwork up front than rather just managing the problem.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to do that, you've got to be able to have tools and processes. Yes, it's part of supplementation. I won't get on my soapbox and get into the orthomolecular science of it, because that's over a lot of people's head. But I am very fortunate in that I've been around some brilliance for the last decade after I suffered, that they're very simple things. And again, you're never going to hear it in mainstream media because that's not what they do. Doctors have very little nutritional training. Not that they're bad people, they aren't. I tell people, if you got a broken arm, God forbid, go to the doctor, get it fixed up by a good, bone doctor, get some pain meds and move on. But the mental health, I call it this bus we've been on for so long, just is not going to solve it. And we've proven over time that once you define what's really going on, and that is internalized fear, anger, or both, typically it's both when it turns into endogenous, now all of a sudden we can start to feed the body what it needs, but also through online programs, through what we call tension myositis syndrome, because it's literally setting in people's soft tissue and they don't even realize it. So it's very powerful once you define it properly. You start feeding the body with supplementation such as methylfolate, folic acid, tied with B vitamins, zinc, other things that have to be synergistic. And I, again, won't get on the soapbox here, but there's another $2 billion industry called the supplement industry that is just as corrupt sometimes as big pharma, because they just repackage them. So what I've done with the people that I've been blessed to be around since I got well was, this is about science, and that's really what it comes down to, is your body is a mechanism. It wants to heal, but you can't heal it truly from a causation standpoint until you feed it with the products that it needs daily. Deep breathing is another one. We are never taught how to breathe. And how simple is that? Most of us deal in our upper thoracic breathing, which is not how the body was meant to be, to feed the heart. But lastly, there's a whole nother picture that big pharma and the medical people just completely miss, which is the tension that has to come out of your body. It's literally sitting there. And now, right, with what's going on in the world, we're all isolated. I said 10 years ago, I'm shattering that damn myth, because depression, anxiety is as real as the sunshine that I'm looking at right here. Shatter it. We built this community around it. It's okay. It's okay to be depressed. We all have bad days. But we're trying to get rid of this methodology of health as a four-wall. You've got to walk into a now care, for instance, to fix your mental health problems. That just doesn't work. You're looking at a guy who did it. It does not work. So I'm as healthy as I've ever been. I'm 52 now, feeling great. I don't feel isolated, even though I'm isolated to my home a bit, because I built this community of people, right, that it's okay to talk about. We all have bad days. But now let's fix it based on the stuff that we've just been talking about here long term. That way, when you do have more situational depression, it's much, much easier to get out of that in a day or two rather than months or years. So
that's so true. And what I love about what you're talking about here, again, this is a process, but it's a solution-based process, not managing the symptoms. So again, this is what's so important for people that will be listening to this and looking at this crisis as a trigger that is just magnifying already existing issues that were deeply rooted from way back, that people have been living each and every day, even before this even happened. And this is not immune to just everyday people. This happens to celebrities, athletes, politicians, everyone.
Absolutely.
There's no one. So everybody on some level is affected by this. But Scott, I mean, what I love is that, your personal journey and all the research and time that you've put into looking at this to actually help people help themselves by getting to the root cause of this issue so they can reclaim back their mental health, I think is so powerful.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Chris. I think it's something that really needs to be drove home in this interview, is that what this has really done is we all, on a certain level, were a little bit depressed before, whether it was endogenous or not. We all go through depression. That's just a fact of life. You cannot, like you already said, depression does not discriminate, right? But the reality is, this has forced us to realize people are just in their office right now. I mean, my wife is one, she has to work from home now. Just that fact of being isolated to your home office, that in and of itself can lead to depression. But what we've truly built here is something that's more communal. Why should depression, God forbid, Chris, you know this, if you get cancer, heart attack, something like that, what does your family do? They rally around you, right? Which they should. But I've been there. When I came out with my depression 12 years ago now, my family was like, whoa, what is that? They didn't even know what that meant. Scott's a strong type A guy, right? How can he be depressed? But what I found is most people are running around with endogenous depression now. I see it every single day. And it's almost like I can read their eyes now, whether they're on some sort of medication, if they're shaking a lot, if they can't focus, the brain fog. You know why? Because I went through all this. I know exactly what people are going through. So I think what we're trying to bring out here is it's forced people to start looking internal rather than external for their health issues. And that's really what Wake Up Sense is built. And that's all it is because I had to get well. My number one priority truly was not starting this company. It was getting myself well, because I still had young kids. And there's so many people I know that are going to watch this that are feeling the exact same thing, because that's what starts to hurt your heart. When you're depressed, you're not being the best husband, father, whatever it is for you that means something to your heart. You can't do that if you're isolated and feeling depressed. So I say, shatter those four walls, right? And let's make this a community that people can talk about this. It's okay. Because when I went down this path, you're right. I met celebrities, I met actors, I met doctors. And when this happened to Robin Williams, I'm telling you what, it set me back, because that is a travesty. That guy's life could have been saved. I mean, on screen for how long he was and just making people laugh. And you want to talk about defining endogenous depression, that was Robin Williams. And it was really, really sad.
It is. And this is all about, again, creating awareness to help people help themselves, right? No one can help someone unless they want to be helped. So this video is more to create some awareness, not to say that, hey, this is about getting to the root cause, that we have to take ownership of our own mental health, but to know that there is a movement, a community, a safe place that you can come to talk to people like Scott Leifer and others that are part of Wake Up Sense, that you can talk about your situation where it's anonymous, and that you can seek certain custom solutions that can help you in this particular area. We encourage you, everyone out there who is suffering in silence, to know that you're not alone and that there is a place to talk. Reach out to people like Scott. There's no obligation for anything. This is all about you and what is important to you. But just remember, as Scott mentioned before, you are the example for others around you that are important to you, your family, your spouse, your children, your mom and dad, your siblings, your friends, your coworkers. Give them the gift by being the example, by taking ownership of your own well-being, starting here, because it starts here. You address this, it affects this. It affects you financially. It affects you spiritually. It affects your relationships, your career, how you do in your business, the decisions you make, the calculated risk you take. That all that can improve the quality of your life starts here. Scott, I want to thank you so much for today, for sharing this valuable wisdom that is enlightening for others that will be listening. And I encourage people here to really, use this as a way to kind of say, I'm going to go start looking at some intelligence that will allow me to go within and start addressing my own situation. So not only do I help myself, but I help others.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough, Chris. More than anything, this is an educational company, and that's how I started it. There's no magic pill, right? What like Big Pharma would want you to think there might be to cure your depression. It does not work that way. The body does not work that way. So please reach out. This thing is, it's powerful stuff, but it's stuff that you have to be able to look beyond those external walls that you've been looking for. I did it. I'll be the first to admit, I was feverishly Googling, trying to get off my medications when I was very uneducated to how the body actually works. But now that I am educated,
Yep.
I'm just a beacon out there for people in education. And you're one of them, Chris. You should be a raising flag out there. So I appreciate you interviewing me. Appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely, Scott. Well, thank you so much for taking your time today. And we want to thank everybody who's watching this video. That if you receive value, please reach out to Scott Leifer. He's here on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. Or you can check out Scott at wakeupsense.com. And again, just go out and connect with Scott and, make today the day that you're going to do something to reclaim back your mental health. Everyone have a great day.
Awesome.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.